Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody who wants to join the panel. And we're going to be talking about the dealer invoice. When you go to that car lot, you get a dealer invoice. We're going to be taking a look at that and the hidden costs and everything that you run across. And we're going to look at these in relations to our position in the public trust and contracting in order to be able to help figure out how to help these instruments as far as correctness and accuracy. We've got Mitchell with us here tonight. How you doing, Mitchell?
Sorry. Hey, Wiz. Good to see you, man.
That's all right. Okay, and we've got Dasa in the back. It says your device is not hooked up. There we go. We've got Hadassah with us tonight. How you doing tonight, Hadassah?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you here. We're going to be going over.
Happy to finally catch you.
Good. We're going to be going over to review language again. Like I was saying, in relations to how to position ourselves in these contracts relative to the actual public trust. Let's see what they give us here. This is a video. Yeah, let's see here. It says how to find the dealer invoice price of a car and how to use it in negotiations with a dealer. And this is from C.O.W.A.R.D.S. C.O.W.A.R.D.S, all one word, on YouTube. So let's look at it.
Screwing up yesterday's title.
See what I did there?
Apologize to the audience for having accidentally screwed.
Greetings, Russ. How you doing tonight?
Good, brother. Sorry I didn't catch you to the end. I had company come in. I come back in. You guys were gone.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. But greetings, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good evening.
Salute. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Well, Mitch.
Okay, let's get into it. And like I said, this is C.O.W.A.R.D.S.
Screwed up the title of yesterday's video.
Yeah. So yesterday's video was really focused on new car pricing and what you should offer for a new car. And Ray and I will do a video in the near future about what the offer is you should make on a used car. We'll talk about the strategy behind that. But I think what we wanted to do today, Dad, is talk about how you actually can get access to dealer invoice pricing. Because a lot of people in the comments asked us about that as well, which is, sure, offer 1 or 2 or 3 or 8% off MSRP. Got it. But how do we see how much the dealership actually paid for the vehicle? So I was thinking, could you talk to us a little bit about invoices that the dealerships pay, how dealerships buy their inventory, maybe even a brief mention of holdback, and maybe we'll talk about that in a future video. And then I'll even share my screen and show an example of getting invoice pricing online from a dealership that I was working a deal on. How's that sound?
Absolutely. It sounds like something I might have, I don't know, firsthand knowledge of.
You've done it once or twice. It's like, to me, the idea of looking at a dealer invoice is like so, I don't know, like abstract, because I've never seen one except for when I get the PDFs. And I'm sure back in the day they probably faxed them to you or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's if you don't know what you're looking at, well, then you don't know what you're looking at. But you can.
And that's why it's important to ask. When we're involved in these contracts and we think we know these terms, oftentimes it's a good choice to go ahead and look them up, despite thinking that you know them. And when you look them up, look at the definition and look up the synonyms and see what synonyms there are.
And the antonyms.
Yes, and antonyms. Yep, you're absolutely correct.
Can help guide people as to what it is they should be looking.
The antonyms and synonyms will help guide you to other options and possible other paths to go instead of having to absolutely accept the conditioned term in the contract. So it's just a matter of finding which one better applies to your situation as you discern it. That's why it's important to
And also
comprehend the
how
language.
they're using it, correct?
Correct. And that's why it's important to discern the use of the words.
Looking for and looking at. And as far as ways to get invoices and invoice pricing, I've searched the internet, and it's more difficult today, believe it or not, than it was 15 years ago to find out what the actual dealer invoice was on a car. But there are some good sources out there. Edmunds has some information to give you some pricing guidelines that suggest what the possible invoice might be on a particular car. TrueCar, if you go to their website, and don't necessarily click all the way through that you want to get quotes, because if you click through that you want to get quotes, well, then you're about to be bombarded by, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8 different dealerships that are going to start emailing you and hounding you about, well, when can you come in? When would be a good time for you to take a look at this car? But if you don't get to that point, you can still get the information as to what transaction prices have been. And so you have some idea as to what's a fair amount to get off or an unfair amount to get off.
And this is one of the reasons, again, not just as far as government oversight, but as far as managing your own affairs and stuff and overseeing yourself so that you can keep track in a statistical sense yourself of what the market is doing over the years. And this is why they get away with jacking up the prices on your products and stuff without you realizing that it's going up higher than the inflation rate or your paycheck. Expenses going up faster than what you make is an obvious dead end. So it's important to pay
It's like if you watch the 10-year bonds, right? If they shift more than 4 points, 4 to 6 points, that's when they're about to flip the market.
Oh, interesting. Never knew that, but that would make sense according to a regular pattern in a graph. Go ahead, John. Oh, that wasn't John, was it? Okay. All right.
But part of the reason I like Edmunds, which they have, it's called True Market Value, I think is what it's called.
Something like that.
Yeah, TMV. If you Google search Edmunds TMV, and I'll link to it in the description below. The reason I like that one is the lead gen portion of it is at the very end. Like you don't have to click through, which I guess is similar to TrueCar. And then the other thing is with the Edmunds one, it shows you MSRP, kind of like the suggested price, which is like the TrueCar price of like, well, here's what we think it should be. But then it also has the estimate of what the dealer invoice price is. And I think, because we've talked about before with the downfall of relying solely on the TrueCar price is that it's in, the great deal that someone got was at that moment in time and was available in that moment in time because maybe it pushed the dealership over the edge for factory incentives and things like that. So it can be hard to really attach yourself to this concept that you're going to get that great deal every time. And whereas the Edmunds TMV, it's like, okay, it shows you what the estimated dealer invoice was, which I think is more accurate.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yes, that incredible deal that you always see listed on TrueCar is the one that might have happened on the last day of the month that was allowed a dealership to pick up an extra $100,000 or $150,000 in factory incentive money for having hit or surpassed their sales objective that was set.
And this is what happened in a major affront against the industry in the 70s when the government bailed out Chrysler. And essentially what it did was it enhanced the competition market by interjecting their own money into the automotive industry again through particular recovery grants for Chrysler. But in that, they also did some limitations in their contracts as far as what they could bring out as automobiles. And this is in relations to the time when people were experimenting with hydrogen and other sources of fuel. And if you do your research on it, you'll find out that Chrysler was wanting to bring about certain cars that would change the entire industry, as well as the fuel industry and a few other markets, and they couldn't do that. So what they literally did was sunk Chrysler through the finances, and in order for them to survive, they had to accept a government deal. This is they play the
Have you
same
ever heard of
psychological.
LIFO?
No, what's that?
It's a type of valuation scheme that they use, and the United States is actually the only place that it's actually legal. Funny enough, it's last in, first out. So they are actually putting the oldest inventory, that value. They're putting the newest inventory's value basically on the oldest inventory and inflating
Oh,
the price.
so it's all yeah, so it's almost like backdating shit.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. Yeah, and they do the same thing with bonds with the municipality. That's why the municipality and the county always have, last name, comma, first, middle, last in, first out.
Yeah, because they're going back to the original estate, and people think that that estate is theirs, when in fact they are the heir to the estate, and the estate is the father's estate.
Oh, well, and I found this out too. This is very interesting because, like you said, the father has the estate, but the woman or the mother actually has an endowment,
Right. It's
which
the
is a
mother.
different setup.
Right. It's the mother that has the endowment, which is the material gifting in this world. The father has the estate, which is the legacy, the story, the history, the power structure. Keep your houses in order. Well, if you're going to maintain your spiritual house, the material house has to come second, and that's what it is. Your legacy is the spiritual inheritance, whereas the material inheritance is from the mother, which is the dowry.
Yeah, exactly. And endowments and dowries are protected, right? So you have the tangible assets and the intangible assets, correct?
Yep, and
Tangible for the endowment, intangible for the estate, but you need both to have real property.
correct. And in order to protect that real property, you have to know the intangible estate, and that's your spirit.
Mhm.
It's spiritual warfare.
Yes, it is. It's not your soul, it's definitely your spirit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Manufacturer, and so they might have been willing to lose $2,000 or $3,000 to pick that $100,000 or $150,000, and that's not always going to be the case. But let's get back to what the invoices are and how to get them. Honestly, I can tell you in all the years that I was in the business, that if I had a customer that came in and wanted to deal just directly with me as the sales manager, or even with the salesperson as their intermediary, if they said, "Listen, I want to make this as pain-free and easy and as transparent as we possibly can. Here's what I'd like to do, Mr. Sales Manager. I would like to pay you X amount of dollars over invoice." That X amount might be $200, $300, $500 over invoice, less any customer incentives that I qualify for and any other dealer incentives that we might be able to apply to lower the price. The only thing I ask in order to accomplish that is that you share the invoice with me of the car that I've selected to purchase.
Now, on that, you notice he said customer, what was it? Customer consideration or customer incentives and dealer incentives. These are equal considerations as we go back and forth. So it's important to remember that when he's talking here about requesting the dealer invoice, it's not limited to that. If you're in a qualified purchase and they want to validate and stand in honor, they have to give you all the details. And that's what I would request is full disclosure. I want the cost, everything. I want to know all the costs so I can use my own discernment to determine whether that's going to be a good purchase for me and how to make that exchange with the equal considerations. Because if it's something that I can't consider equally, then it's not to my benefit or it might cause me a detriment, then I don't want to enter into it. And those are the situations that brought about the convergence of common law and equity is so that when we're offered contracts, they don't make them enforceable if there's some kind of dishonor or non-disclosure. And this is the right to contract in knowing everything there is about the product you're buying. If they're going to be deceitful about it, then what are they selling you?
Can we do that? And as a sales manager, I would say absolutely. I couldn't answer that question fast enough because that just meant it was going to be easy. It was going to be easy for the customer. It was going to be easy for me. It was going to be easy for the salesperson. And so what I would do is actually I had an invoice book of every car that I had in inventory, and I could just by stock number go pull the invoice up.
Yeah.
And walk it out to the customer and share it with them. And then when I start,
and they're required to have those at the dealership, and I believe that's still valid today. I know for many years they've been required to have that invoice, just like they've been required to have that MCO.
stop killing trees in Brazil is by not printing up all these invoices and just having them sit in a book. I kept them online so that I could print them as I needed them.
Yeah.
And I would share with the customer what and invoices typically show.
Greetings, Sister Iman. How you doing tonight?
All is well, brother.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
What the MSRP or retail side of it is and what the wholesale side of it is, what the dealer pays for it. And then there'll be other numbers on an invoice that might reflect what the holdback portion would be, which, like we've discussed, can be anywhere from 2.5%, maybe 3% of what the MSRP is that the dealer will receive as a quarterly bonus for selling cars.
That's their commission, and generally it's anywhere from like 3 to 6%. Excuse me, 3 to 6% is what they allow. So the dealership itself is going to get some for its overhead, but the dealer himself is going to get 2 to 3% generally, maybe 4, maybe a little bit more. And so we have an expense or a cost that we have to consider beyond just the manufacturer that adds on to that original invoice. Go ahead.
They're also supposed to tell you that they never actually bought the car or paid for it.
Correct.
It's on consignment.
Yes, yes, you're exactly right. It's on consignment, and they get consideration when they get paid for it. That's why it's a percentage. You know, they have to have a thing to cover the expenses totally, and then, like I said, with this invoice, it's going to have an added expense after the manufacturer, above and beyond the title, for their work and their efforts in getting the car to the lot and storing it and maintaining it through weather and this and that. And it does have a maintenance with that consignment.
Yeah, basically because it's like the manufacturer renting. It's like a very low rate lease.
Correct.
They have to pay in order to have it on that lot, right?
Yep. And I'm sorry, Miss Sister Iman, what's on your mind?
The question that I have is the holdback considered part of the commission? Is that what
Yes.
I overstood? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And basically what it is just another charge to cover the deficiency in the cost of that invoice, because that invoice is just for the car itself. So once they take on the consignment, now they have an obligation, and that holdback is to cover their obligations and expenses in that obligation.
Ships will oftentimes cut into their holdback in order to make car deals. And there could be other things like gas reimbursements and things like that. If I remember correctly, many years ago, I think it was $60 or $75 that was reimbursed on every Acura for the full tank of gas that we gave to the customer, so that Acura was actually paying for the full tank of gas.
Wow.
But that's actual, when you think about it, that's actual income. That's
Well, especially when gas prices were really low, you guys were probably had a nice margin there.
When gas prices were low, and then when gas prices were really high,
Yeah.
It wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, it didn't
So
work enough.
you take the good with the bad, and you just learn to live with it. So you can also remember the other day when we were talking about ordering cars. Well, every manufacturer has ordering guides, and the ordering guides, and you can look at them both just on the retail side or the MSRP side, or the retail and wholesale side, and
that purchase order, that sticker in the window of the car for brand new cars, that's evidence of the consignment. Think about that. And that's called a purchase order. That's what these guys are dealing with when they make those orders. That's a purchase order, and they never paid for it. So the purchase order is the extension from the dealership, as they're the ones buying something. A purchase order is an order to buy, and then they extend the purchase order to you so you can make the purchase. But they're the ones that are buying it and then extending that payment, that hold off or holdback on you, as if though it's a greater expense, because you don't know. They're not operating on money. On their side, they're going to enter those elements into an electronic book entry system, and everything's done on credits. They're going to go to the discount window, and that discount window is going to issue credits. Then they're going to demand money from you, dollar for dollar, and there's nowhere mentioned on that Federal Reserve note a dollar. Ask them to define a dollar. Go ahead.
You always get stuck on that one. But there's examples of those contracts in the AAMVA. And their particular, the AAMVA's purchase contract and agreement. Have you read that? You should. It's a doozy.
I imagine.
But they have a lot of the how this is all working on the AAMVA. That's also where all of your police officers and first responders get trained through. It's through them.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Huh.
you can go through the ordering guide with the customer, showing them exactly what the markup is on every option that they choose. Because
Really?
you can
Wow.
show them what the cost of that option was, as opposed to what the suggested retail is on that, and you can build the whole car, and show what the wholesale pricing is. Now, there are certain things that might not be reflected in the invoice pricing or wholesale pricing when you do it that way. And one of those things might be dealer advertising associations, because many manufacturers have regionalized or localized advertising associations where all the like brands in that area agree to contribute X amount of dollars to go into a collective advertising pot so that they can do localized advertising for the dealer group. And that could be $100 or $200, $300 per car that gets added to the invoice. And the reason it gets added to the invoice is because the dealers are actually paying that, but it goes into a generalized fund for the regionalized marketing.
And that's part of like the popularity contest. When you pay for these politicians, you're actually paying extra just so they advertise it. And then you find out here it's multiple dealerships. So in a competitive market where those dealerships would normally compete, they're coming together because they're selling the same brands and using the advertising to help the competition look real, so they draw you into at least one of their parking lots.
And the advertising
Those are
costs
when you see
tend to be as much as 1/3 of the actual,
Yeah,
it's what they call the. It's insane.
yeah. Sometimes you have to understand. Yeah, sometimes you have to understand in these large metropolitan areas, that they're going to spend a bit on advertising because they have to try to draw customers in those hard tiger markets. Whereas in your smaller towns, they don't need the advertisement so much because they're not selling so many vehicles, and that alone is one of the indicators of the need for high invoice prices that aren't there, like those. So it's your larger metropolitan areas that are going to take advantage of that advertising thing, whereas your smaller ones probably not so much, even though they might have a small market up holdback for it. Go ahead, Sister Iman.
Question that I have, prior to doing a purchase order, does one have to do what is called I think it's called a prerequisite, that you have to do I can't think right now, but it's something that you have to do prior to putting in a purchase order, and I think it's called a prerequisite or something like that. I'm not sure. It just slipped
Prerequisite
my
or
mind.
pre-qualification, right?
Okay.
Right, and that would be on their side because again, they're the ones making the original purchase order, and so they fill in the prerequisites, and then they transfer that stuff to you. That's why that sticker's still on the window. It comes with the vehicle, and that's part of the problem with that MCO being separated. It should come with the vehicle as well.
See the commercials on TV, like, I'm here in Maryland, so it's like your Baltimore, Washington area Honda dealers. That's what you talk about. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So that wouldn't necessarily be reflected in the order guide, but it's something that your local dealer can at least let you know if they are a part of an ad association, how much they get charged per car. And they are legitimate costs. They do get charged per car because that money goes into a rather large pot to create that localized advertising for the group.
But if I'm a customer, I don't really want to pay for that. Like, you can.
Yeah, well, the dealer did, so you are. It's just a cost, and you're paying for it.
No,
it's just a cost, and you're paying for it. This is why it's very important to do your research on this stuff so you do know what you're paying for. Listen, I don't intend to.
It's the cost that they're making money off of, right?
Yeah, and as a dealership, they're making money off the advertisement. Well, what if I go directly to the manufacturer and custom order as a foreign dignitary of some sort?
It's a lot easier.
And now you don't have the advertisement cost, do you? Unless the motor company itself has that advertisement cost, which it should be in that invoice price for them. That you should be able to get the same information from them. What are you charging me for advertising? I understand the dealerships do their own local advertising, but what do you do as a manufacturer to recoup the cost for advertising on your level? What are you passing on to me as a customer? Again, the term customer, custom manufacturer order. Why are you accepting prerequisite orders already filled out with certain things already customized on vehicles? Wouldn't you want to have that list and just go through and have those customizations yourself and make them direct to the manufacturer instead of having to accept certain ones on a car that you might buy at a dealership and not quite get all the ones that you want? Isn't that the reason that you want to, personalize your vehicle?
That order guide that he was talking about, you can normally find that in your state website for the regulatory agency.
Yep.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of doing your research, guys, and that's the perfect point to remind everybody: don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. It's one of those things. Like I said, it may be different in large metropolitan areas than in your smaller towns, and that's why a lot of times it's often better if you're going to be dealing with dealerships rather than direct manufacturer. Go to the smaller towns, check them out first. Probably going to find a lot better deal.
And I would focus on the towns that have very large rail traffic, for trains.
Right.
And it's normally the ones that you don't think are they have the most rail traffic. That's where you're going to get the cheapest deals as far as getting that freight shipped
Yeah,
in.
and so, yeah, sometimes some of those centers would be like even some of your biggest metropolitans, but you have to go to certain areas.
Yep, definitely. Oh, and you can also find those
Trust
city
me,
guides through the AAMBA. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, AMDA is going to have a lot of information that is great for research and in learning what your options are, what's put into it, what the regulations are, things like that.
recognize it. I'm just saying.
I know you're saying you don't want to have to be the one that pays for that. No, I get it.
It's like I don't even enjoy when I'm watching.
And while I remind everybody that the terminology that these guys are using shows me that they still don't know the underlying element of the credit system because they still believe that you can pay for things. And again, I remind you, HGR 192 and the taking away of the gold and silver as a payment method and giving us Federal Reserve notes doesn't allow us to pay things dollar for dollar. That means they can't demand payment dollar for dollar. Therefore, the only thing that we have for a payment system are negotiable instruments, either deferment of debt or extension of credit. Those are the two.
Or offset.
Yeah, and I'll remind everybody, offset is more for those that are actually involved in the commercial system as organized under the laws of the United States. So they have the ability to offset a debt. And that's not for us. We don't offset debts that we create. That's for them. So as third-party benefactors, we have the ability to extend the credit. And in that extension of credit, their system is still not going to recognize it as an extension of credit and give you receipts that say U.S. debit. That's where you use the 1099 for a cancellation of debt because it should have never been created. It's an extension of credit, and therefore the creation of the debt, thus the deferment of debt, is a conversion of an extension to credit to a deferment of debt. Think about it. Go to the ATM with a credit card and pull out cash. You just exchanged credit for a promise to pay. You just created a debt out of credit. That's what the system is designed to do. All you have to do is find the remedy, and that's, whether depending on what position you are in the contract as it relates to the trust. Again, go ahead.
Right. At the 1099-C, also, whoever the debtor is listed, do you know that used to actually be called forgiveness of debt, not cancellation?
Oh, really? Would make sense.
It
makes sense because that's technically what you're doing is you're forgiving the debt.
Yeah, they had to rename it because nobody was using it.
Uh-huh.
But it actually makes the debtor have income, which is one of the ways that they trick us with our person, but is a very good way or an easier way to flip the script on them to show that that is their income and not yours or your person.
Correct, because they're the ones that are actually doing the investing.
Exactly.
Watching TV and I see those commercials come on, let alone do I want to be subsidizing them.
I understand.
So I guess there are a variety of things that don't actually even show up on the dealer invoice. So this whole idea of, invoice plus 250, invoice plus 500 in terms of like, oh, I'm getting a good deal. You kind of are, but it's more of a sales tactic at this point than anything, right?
Well, you are, as long as the dealership agrees to apply whatever customer or dealer incentives that might be available.
Okay.
From that price that you've agreed upon.
Customer incentive. The best customer incentive is informed use of credit. Learn about it.
And yes,
my customer incentive, this purchase order, this agreement, this sales agreement, whatever you want to call it, is in fact a credit agreement under informed use of credit. Go ahead.
And you should, just for your own edification, look into whatever tax credits are being offered at the time, because that's the ones that they're taking the most advantage of, and where you can actually focus a lot of your, leveraging.
Yep, I would agree with that. I
Right
would
now,
agree with
for
that.
sustainable energy, right?
Yep.
Alternative fuel. That
Greetings, Rebel Studio. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Good, good. You sounded good tonight.
Cool.
So, if it was the invoice was 30,000 and you've agreed that you'll pay 250 over invoice, so you're at 30,250, but there's $2,500 in consumer or dealer incentives that can be applied to lower the price.
Yeah.
Well, then they'll take $2,500 off of the 30,250 to get you the ultimate selling price.
Yeah.
It's a fair way to do it. It's a way that recognizes that a dealer has to make a profit, because they need to be. It's a profit-making organization, and it cuts to the chase and cuts down the amount of time that's involved in getting to the bottom line number. That's a fair number for everybody involved.
Definitely. And I'll share my screen because I know I was talking to you, Dad. I was working a deal for one of our customers. I think, I'll hit share here. Hopefully there's not too much stuff on my screen. And I was working with the deal.
Don't share too much information.
I was working. I don't think there's anything bad here. You can see my.
Okay.
I'm working on a deal for a client for a Jaguar, and I just, and you can see these messages were from today. And here you go. The dealer's saying I'm essentially losing $1,800 to put the deal together. And I asked her to, I knew that we got a competitive price, but in my email before, I just asked. I said, "Can you send me over the invoice, so I can review that with the client to convey to them this offer that we have in front of us." And she's out of the office working, but I mean, you can see right here. So dealerships are willing to lose money to move units, and you can get a sense for that.
And I want to remind everybody again here that in this concept, again, if you know what you're doing on your side and understand the concept that it's an extension of credit, why is it they need to lose money? You can just extend those credits.
Well, and you also need to know that they're not technically losing money because they're ledgering that debt as an asset.
Correct. So go ahead and be fair. Well, I understand it's all credit. So yeah, why ledger it that way when we can ledger it this way? Again, it's a matter of learning those terms and using it as a consideration in the contract.
Right. Or you go meet them halfway and have them ledger half the debt.
Yeah.
And you ledger half the credit, right?
Absolutely. It's all negotiable. So negotiate.
Now,
Right.
Keith, the question that I have is that I knew someone who bought several automobiles in the past, but they would go to the dealership looking for demonstration cars. And a lot of those times, aren't those cars like assigned to the dealership for like when you take it out on a test drive, and then you can discount the demonstration car and still sell it, and then you can get a better price on it as opposed of just doing a negotiation part of it on a brand new car. Can you elaborate on that for me, if you may?
Well, absolutely. It goes to deflation of price upon use. So if you've got a brand new car that goes to the dealership and it's sitting there on the lot, it has 0.28 miles because they drove it on the trailer and then off the trailer, as opposed to one that's got 60 miles worth of miles on it. You never know what kind of say they took it down a gravel road and they got one little gravel thing on the bottom, and it causes a deflation in price because that already is a wear and tear that might cause future deterioration. So while it was in their use or in their possession, they used it as a incentive on their side. So now the incentive on the customer side, that is, if it's had that kind of use, they should get a deflated price. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense, and it seems like it makes it kind of advantageous to the buyer, the customer.
Well, yeah, it just depends on how you look at it, and and what your skills are. But again, if you want to get around that, again, the best option, in my opinion, is direct manufacturer custom order, ship to party.
Well, that's the only
Not
way that you
necessarily
actually get retail, because everything
Right.
else is resale.
Correct.
losing money. She is essentially $1,800 below what the invoice amount is, but you don't know what all the factory to dealer incentives there might be on that.
And that's the resale versus retail. When you have the retail, there are no factory to dealer incentives. So it wipes out the dealer incentives. Now you're only dealing with the manufacturer and their incentives, which are their costs. And they're much
And
better
the
to
tax rate.
mitigate those costs.
So if you do ship to deal, what was that again? That you just, is that ship to dealer you said through the
No,
manufacturer, or ship to?
direct manufacturer custom order, ship to party.
Okay, so ship to party, that means the product will have to be directly delivered to the private man or private woman
Correct.
after the order has been placed, correct?
Correct.
All right.
You
Yeah,
can't have it
yeah,
delivered to a
yeah. If you,
trading.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. If you happen to have a vehicle and you get one, or if you get it through that other way, like it's seen as normal, you could eliminate the title that you had put on the vehicle, and then you eliminate the registration, and you get the manufacturer's certificate of ownership for that vehicle from the manufacturer of that vehicle, and then it puts it in your name. Also, if you don't want to go through buying another vehicle that other way to get out of their system and all that, there's a way to do that too with what you already have. If you ain't got the ability to afford to do it the other way.
Right. And when we're talking about that MCO, we're talking about making sure you understand the concept of taking on a tax ownership, motor vehicle operators lease, registration, and all that. That's all false. You're not required to do that, and you have to be able to substantiate that yourself. Again, do not believe me. Do not believe the neighbor. Do not believe the government. Do not believe your mother, for crying out loud. Do your research so you know. I cannot do it for you. And if I give you paperwork that you think is going to do it for you, you forget that you have to put in the work. The paper will not do the work for you, and I can't either. I can explain it to you. I cannot comprehend it for you.
So Keith, that will seem like from manufacturer to delivery, the end what would be like an end user that would
Correct.
alleviate any excise tax and any middleman fees that would come about, correct?
Correct. The only middleman fees would be the shipment fees, and that would be point of origin to final destination, as you spoke. End of the mile, or end of the line, last mile, intended receiver.
That's
Car.
if they handle their own freight.
Right. And oftentimes, again, if you understand it's an extension of credit, work it in. Help them handle the freight. Here's the extra credits you need to do it. It's an unlimited system of credits. It's done on good faith. And if they're using a deferment of payment, the extension of credit is just an opposing dynamic, a better
Or if
opposing
you know,
dynamic because it's not creating debt. Go ahead.
or if you know a trucker or somebody, a friend that might have a shipping or freight company,
Yeah.
utilize them.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of private people that do what's called hot shot runs. You can negotiate with them. They're independent contractors to do that kind of stuff.
They're actually called hot shot
And
runs.
Yep. Look up transportation hot shots.
some of those incentives allow the dealer to lower the price of the car to where it looks like they're losing money, but they still might be making, I don't know, $500, maybe $1,000. Who knows? To me, it's probably a little early in the month for them to take an $1,800 loser to get to any sales objective. I
Yeah.
could see somebody doing that maybe more towards the end of the month. But what she's telling you is essentially she's $1,800 below cost. She's not losing $1,800 at this point. She's essentially $1,800 below cost, and she's about to apply whatever incentive that they're getting from Jaguar to allow them to be able to be in that position and still actually be making some kind of small profit.
This is what I love about you. Is
This is it. This is it. This is all you love about.
So basically, like he just said, it's if the dealer's saying that they're going to lose money, then they have the ability to revert back to the manufacturer incentives and put something else in that contract because they're available. And what it is they just have a bunch of a list of contract clauses that they can insert or remove, exchange, use in lieu of this and that. And that's what we're trying to learn here, is just learn how to adapt those contracts for your use through proper incentives. Those incentives are the equal consideration and equal benefits. In order to know what's equal and everything, you have to have transparency on what's there.
I mean, after all these years, oh my God.
HoneyBook is a complete client flow management platform, which allows me to do everything all in one place.
That's it. That's a wrap. This is what I love.
Okay.
No, look at me. I mean, I negotiate deals for our customers, and I'm still learning stuff every single day from you, because you're right. They're not losing $1,800. There's all sorts of incentives on the back end that I'm not fully aware of, but it is a great kind of marketing or sales tactic for her to say.
So, and that's a great tactic to use in your communications. Both these guys are agreeing. Both of them are dealers or working in a dealership. I imagine he's calling him dad, so it's father son. The father worked at a dealership, and he got his son a job at the same dealership, and he brought him up to be one of the better salesmen or whatever, because he already knew what was going on. So they're both agreeing that they really didn't lose anything because there are incentives there that they can still use. They just haven't been used.
Yeah, of course. I'm $1,800 below cost, which builds confidence on our end. Look, I was just feeling overly confident. I think that's this expertise that you bring to the table, is to kind of be pragmatic about it.
Yeah, and really where she is might represent a really, really, really aggressive deal for the vehicle that she's selling and for the amount of those vehicles that might be out there that fit the color combination that your client wants.
Yeah.
So it really could be just a phenomenal deal for your client.
Well, and the thing is, I have quotes from another dealership nearby, and they're not even close to that. And I disclosed this deal to them, and they were like, "How the hell are they losing that much money?" So I feel confident. But regardless, I think the point I'm trying to make is you can ask. But even if you're asking for Invoice or where you are relative to Invoice, it's still not necessarily going to be, like you said, indicative of the true situation.
Indicative of the real cost.
Yeah.
So again, importance of transparency and asking questions about those costs, again, so you can have equal consideration and equal benefit. And again, this is a matter of your position as a benefactor in qualifying the extension of credits as that very equal benefit. Go ahead, sister.
Now, the question that I have, brother, is that when doing an application, say to acquire an automobile, like whether you're doing it at a dealership or placing it to the manufacturer, is there a different type of name that one of those would be called? Because I thought I heard in the past they talk about a credit application versus the general application that is used at these dealership when you walk in.
Correct. That's why I say when you're walking in and you see these sales agreements and stuff, make sure you get that amendment in there. This is a credit agreement. I'm using a credit device. to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. This is credit on account versus money on account.
Yes.
And so I think, I mean, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of our audience. I think we need to do some more content around used cars, because on the new car side, it seems not easy, but relatively straightforward how to approach these challenges. On the used car side, and we do it for our customers, it is trickier, it is harder. So we'll have to come up with some more content around there. Well, I guess leave a comment down below if that's what you're interested in. Is about used cars, certified pre-owned, how to make offers, pricing, etc.
Yeah, no, we can tackle that on another day. Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and that's going to be a whole different thing again, and that's a displacement that digs one deeper into the system, and having to get that used car out of the registration system, like we were talking about with the manufacturer direct custom order. It's going through a dealership. That dealership sends the MSO to the state and has it registered. Now you have to deal with the state in order to get it unregistered and qualify it as that personal, family, household product or good.
Yeah, I went to the registration office to see if I could get my other vehicle that I don't have running unregistered. And they said, we don't do that.
Oh yeah,
They
they
sell the note every 2.5 years. They
yeah.
resell the note to make a new one. Buy the note.
Well, okay, so I comprehend what you mean by buy the note, but how does that process go? Do you know?
So they do they like the whole LIFO thing, right? This is how they do mortgages. This is how they do, putting people in prison and jail and all of it. Sadly, they are doing that, oldest inventory at the newest valuation, and they do it every 2.5 years because it's a 3-year cycle before they actually have to hand everything over to the IRS. And because the government, fiscal year starts in July, they're about 6 months ahead of everyone else. So that's why it's 2.5 years. And what they do is they get rid of the old inventory at that new price, and they sell those notes, and then they create a new one. If you're able to go and buy the registration, that note, and put it in the contract with them that it's going to be taking that note off of their ad valorem tax rolls and all that, you might have to buy all of the previous notes too, but you can do it. They can tap into your accounts for you. That's one of the things. If you look in a lot of the statutes for under estates, under the courts,
Right.
one of the things.
So basically, what you're doing is you're buying the property that's an extension of the very property that you bought, the automobile, and because it's still
Exactly.
floating out there, it could cause harm to the property that you have, which is now private property. So it has to be removed from the public. I understand what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, and because they keep doing it over and over again, you have to buy the lot of it.
Yeah.
So would that be considered like FIFO?
First in, first out.
Yes.
In this here, the way she's talking, it's you buy the bond, and you could technically buy all of them in the past, but I think it would only take the one because it's the current one. The others would have already been sold and a new one created. So the ones that have already been sold, they really don't have a claim. They're just out there being sold on faith, and the guy buying it is buying it on faith, and it's not really got any nexus if they've got a new one. See what I'm saying? So that's a sucker's game there, I think.
Can I read this? It's something I found in the statutes, at least for Colorado, and it is actually pertaining just specifically to this.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, it's not long. This is Title 13, Chapter 58, Section 105, and it's administrator to buy on execution. When it is necessary in order to secure the collection of any judgment in favor of any executor or administrator, it is the duty of such executor or administrator to bid for and become the purchaser of real estate at a sheriff's sale, which real estate so purchased shall be assets in his hands and may be again sold by him upon the order of the court of probate, and the monies arising from such sale shall be paid over and accounted for as other monies in his hands.
As other monies in his hand.
Mhm.
See,
Yeah,
that's
right?
that's that deferment of debt. You've got other monies in hand, and you're going to make an exchange for other monies in hand. You're just trading one debt for another debt.
You have to look at it like a ration system almost, right?
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's a military per diem, daily rations.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to just
That's
note
all.
right before you hit us with your classic outro is my dad, when he first retired, he had a friend from the car dealership that he worked at that like had a screen printer. I don't know, and like
That's embroidery.
Yeah,
That's
as
not
you can see, that's
Thank you.
embroidery.
Yeah, this is high quality stuff.
And so my dad like retired from the car business, and then I made a logo with our last name on it, and now the whole family has Team Shepska gear. And I just noticed that you're wearing your Team Shepska pullover, and I'm wearing my Team Shepska pullover.
Well, and just a quick story. The story behind that Team Shepska top is that was to commemorate a trip that you and I and your sister took to San Francisco to go watch our beloved Arizona Cardinals play the San Francisco 49ers at Levi's Stadium in October of 2017, I think.
Yeah, 17, I think, yeah.
Which is why it says San Francisco on there. Because I just thought it would be nice to have something that we could look at and always bring back the memories of us sitting first row in the end zone. The person sitting next to me was, I don't know, the cameraman. Okay, so we were as close as you could get. And I remember that day, Laura Oakman walking by, and you stopping her in her tracks by calling out, "Laura, I love you."
This is the truth.
And she stopped and she chatted with us 2 or 3 times, and we just had a really, really great trip. And well, what made the game even better was the Cardinals actually won that game.
Yeah.
Which is one of only 1 or 2.
Yeah, they're talking to the end here about the family stuff. So what do you guys think so far? Are we hitting on top points in looking into this stuff and knowing that we have a right to transparency in those various different incentives, both for ourselves and for the dealership and manufacturers, so we know our position and its qualifications in those contracts?
There'd be one other thing I would point out that would definitely give people more, knowledge and leverage as far as how these transactions work, especially pertaining to the county and that DMV and AMVA. There's allocations in the IRS for, you mentioned HJR, one of these two, right? All of our expenses are supposed to be paid. Most people can't tell you where any of those, amounts are at, or, what they're supposed to be, what it covers, any of that. They're actually in the IRS. If you go to irs.gov, yeah, you look up local housing and utility standards just in the search, and just pick a state. And when you go there, either go all the way down or look to the right, and there's another hyperlink that says the same thing. Click that, and it'll list all the states. And it breaks down those local utility and housing standards to the county and to how many persons in your household, not people, persons. But below that, below all the states, there's also a few other allocations that they have, one of which being transportation.
Yep.
And you have that transportation allocation for not only for purchasing that vehicle, but also for maintenance. And there's also an allocation for public transportation, right? All of that.
Yeah, and that's why that's why we dig into this stuff. You mentioned maintenance. That's the same thing with your rental agreements. They're charging you for maintenance. but you're
Uh-huh.
not charging them for for the equal consideration in exchange. It's the same
Well,
thing
and
as a
that's when
purchase
they,
order. You're selling something and they're buying something. If you're selling something and they're buying something, quid pro quo, you're buying something and they're selling something. That's the equal
Mhm.
exchange.
Well, and it's funny because that whole, they'll give those incentives that they keep speaking about. They'll tack on that whole free maintenance for 2 years, right? So
Yeah,
you're able to go in there and get a free oil change like every like 3 months. You're like, woohoo! And when you go and you look at the amount of money that they're actually collecting for that oil change that they're spending, what, $30 on every 6 months, but monthly they're collecting like $350. You just want to kick yourself in the butt.
yeah. It's amazing that Dewey Decimal System and so many other things. Federal Reserve note, not dollar. Fractional floating note. What
Well,
is
in the
it?
FRN, right?
Fractional reserve system and floating rate notes, and yeah, it's
The
not.
floating rate note also stands for free radio network.
Oh, yeah, that's your right to broadcast. That's First Amendment. Your freedom of speech and
Uh-huh.
freedom of expression to broadcast or narrowcast.
But it's also your
Green smells
ability
are
to do transactions in Treasury. You need a radio button to do transactions in Treasury.
Oh, interesting. Uh,
I know, right?
see, and that reminds me right away with dispatch.
Yeah,
That's your air
yeah,
jurisdiction.
the 911 stuff. It's always an emergency, and they're always taking care of you and your safety, right?
Yeah, and it relates to your Mayday, 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 SOS, your right to broadcast.
Uh-huh.
That's the air
Yes,
jurisdiction.
ecclesiastical, which mimics admiralty very closely, and you're in that air jurisdiction through the FCC. You're actually supposed to have a call sign, right?
Yeah,
Not a name, but a call sign. Like Maverick, Goose, right?
yeah.
Hadassah, call sign.
Well, it seems like when you have a call sign, it sounds like you're doing what is called a citizen brand radio. When for the truckers, they would have those that specific call names that they call themselves when they're up and down the roadway.
Yeah,
Correct?
my
10-4
mom.
rubber ducky.
Yeah,
Right.
my dad was the Wichita lineman. My mom was the Eager Beaver.
I
I
love it.
remember that early on. But one of the other question that I have is that in the sale of the purchasing of or acquiring of the automobile, would one when you do the purchase order, would you um would you specify that in that credit agreement that for the purchase order, do y- are you wanting them to use that credit
Absolutely.
form, or do you or is that different than the statement, the statement of you know what I mean, the MSO?
No, the MSO is just a certificate from the manufacturer that's defining the product and saying that they're transferring it to whoever. This is why
It's
it's
a
important
manifest.
it's
Well,
important to understand why we deal directly with the manufacturer rather than the dealership, because in that situation with the dealership they already transferred the title. And that transfer isn't supposed to happen and then be separated from that automobile through a consignment. If they're on a consignment and they sell a product, they're supposed to sell the product, and its certificate is supposed to be a validation. They send that certificate over to the state. There's something wrong with that process.
so the certificate of origin, is that where the automobile is originating, which would be the manufacturer's certificates before its delivery destination point?
Correct.
It's similar to like a computer, right? As a born date.
Yeah, an origination date. Yep, where it came off the line.
Exactly. Yep.
BS, car dealer fees that customers need to watch out for. We've got the laundry list of them and all the names that they may be showing up as. We're gonna walk people through, and you'll help us understand what's BS, what's not BS, what we shouldn't pay for, and if it's negotiable or not. How's that sound?
That sounds like good to me.
Love it, Dad. All right, here's the deal, folks. Fees come in a lot of varieties.
Yes.
All right, let me just run through the list really quickly. Not all of them, because we got a list of more than 50 names for what these fees can and will show up as. However, there's a couple categories here.
Yes.
You have accessories or accessory packages. You have your car alarm products, like, truly alarms.
Yeah.
You've got paint and exterior protection products. You've got lost and stolen key products. You have just your traditional dealer fees. You've got theft deterrent products. You have GPS theft deterrent products. You have interior protection products. You've got nitrogen.
And these are all dealer fees, but these tend to be mostly your custom order issues. So if you want a key fob as opposed to just a regular key, normally nowadays that comes as a regular option. But there was a day where it wasn't. So you could customize your order, and instead of getting a regular key, you could get the new updated version, which included the key fob. And this is the same thing with all these protection things and nitrogen inflation. Those are just customizations you can have added on directly by the your direct manufacturer custom order.
Do you think you could actually request if you when you do a direct order for them to remove the kill switch?
Oh, I'm sure. I
wonder if they would actually do it though.
Well, you would have to in a situation like that. I think it would be a matter of asserting your capacity as not an enemy of the state, and there wouldn't be any reason to need to use a kill switch or this or that, and therefore it would be a prerequisite in situations where you make such demands like that and get cornered, that you be prepared in having your armistice, your indemnification agreement, make sure they know that you're original to the land and that their admiralty doesn't supersede you, that you have an equal station in life, and in that you have the equal station in life to control your contracts. And that would be one of the contract elements that you have control of, particularly when it comes to the failure of equal consideration, equal benefit. If you're going to have a kill switch on my private property, what is my benefit? Do I have a kill switch on you? See, that's where the authority bounds are broken.
Well, and one thing we found too that's actually been very effective, greeting cards. That this is going to seem a little out of left field, so just bear with me. So greeting cards are actually negotiable instruments in a way. For instance, Hallmark Trust Bank is actually one of the largest trust banks in the world, right? And they're gifts that these entities can accept. You can also, thank you cards, right? Manners are a big part of this. If you say thank you for something, like especially ahead of time, Henry VIII was actually very, very good at doing this. He would never
a gentleman announces his presence.
Yes, and he would, if you thank somebody ahead of time, for instance, thank you for removing that kill switch for me. I really do appreciate it.
Right.
That was very nice of you. Now what are they going to do? That's you've had them backed them into a corner. Yeah. You've already thanked them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's
for your
just
tyrant who doesn't need.
Well, it's one of those things that I try to impress upon people. The language that I found in researching the English language is an amazing, beautiful thing if you learn how to use it. And it's not that you actually have to use it against them, but you can use it in a power structure way that it benefits. Because it's not detrimental to them. Yeah, it's not detrimental to them if you don't have a kill switch. It's only detrimental if there is a kill switch and they need it. What's the need? That's a future tense thing. You can't impose pre-crime on me. Not today, not yesterday, and not tomorrow.
Oh, and that's one of the little things I found that's inserted into their VCAP program through the IRS. It's a volunteer closing agreement program. Very interesting. That whole pre-crime thing is very strong in there. But basically, any other law that was, or rule or regulation or code or whatever that was in existence prior to that agreement doesn't apply whatsoever.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, they're
I'm like,
certainly
yeah,
trying to change
it's
things, aren't they?
oh yeah, they're good at it too.
Yeah.
which is a fun one. We've seen some crazy dollar amounts there. And then you got windshield protection packages.
Oh, wait a minute. They mentioned window tint. Here's one topic I want to touch on real quick as it goes to the onus probandi of providing your own privacy. See, that's one of the things that they use in these traffic violations is the window tint. And when it comes to the window tint, if you're in your own private automobile, you have the onus probandi of providing privacy, yet they say you can't do that.
Oh, I did find out, however, though, right? It's if you have you ever heard of a branded title?
No.
This is very interesting. So you know that a lot of the cars are, you know, for commercial cars and stuff that, or even family businesses that have that design and logo that's all wrapped in like the whole car is, you know, basically a advertising billboard, pretty much. That's considered a branded title, and it exempts them from taxes and also from a lot of those restrictions, including window tinting.
Right. It sounds like a salvage title. It says a branded title indicates that a car was once declared a total loss or comes with some other major problem. Cars with branded titles have been repaired or rebuilt and sold.
And it also actually goes hand in hand with do you know much about cattle brands?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's a
Earmarking.
little off that.
It started out. It
Yeah,
started out with
right?
branding, and then modern times it became earmarking.
Well, and brands, cattle brands, even to this day, they have a very hefty price tag on them, and they're one of the most protected proprietary, you know, assets you can have. Actually, like my family paid a pretty penny for our cattle brand because it was called Bar None, right? Very old brand, and those are very protected by not only the USDA but also DMV because they use it as a, you know, branded title.
Well, and not only
Right.
that, but because it enters into the agricultural field too. See, agricultural laws and statutory code are different. This is why you have, if you know what you're doing again in the motor vehicle division stuff, you're dealing with non-residents that have farm or agricultural use equipment. So there are totally different words that they use for those different jurisdictions. And so we have to understand, even when we're talking about automobiles, there's a distinct difference between automobile and equipment.
Yes. Like I found my birth certificate recorded as a mobile home on the county level.
Oh,
Because home is like
interesting.
part of it, right? And we're mobile. Yeah. Cute, huh?
Well, that's one of the exemptions for this registration and stuff here in Iowa is motor homes.
Oh, and yes, right. And one thing I found, if you look in the Treasurer's Index here, it has the whole definitions and relates it to court cases and all that. And if you look under mobile home, right? First, it has mobile home park, and the definition for that was real property, which I found very, very interesting. And then below that, it had mobile home, and it said see mobile home park. And under that, it said affixed to land and title purged becomes real property.
And that's where we talk. And that's where we talk about these motor home villas, these motor home parks and stuff. You look at those street signs.
Drives me nuts as a contractor and a real estate investor. How like you know mobile home parks and stuff had completely different statutes, rules, regulations, completely
They're
separate.
private. Look at the street markers. Those are blue signs. Your regular city public streets are going to have generally going to be green, but there are some that are going to be like white with black writing. But in general, your blue signs are indicative of a private street. and you will most often see those in motor home parks.
Or very, very rich neighborhoods, yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if
Gated communities.
and to the lady, if you may elaborate on this question. So these particular pop-up sites where they're bringing in these homes, they're already manufactured. They're like cut out like a puzzle, and then they set them up on these grounds, and this would be considered a mobile home park where they're selling these homes as manufactured homes. Is that
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes.
And so
The only
these,
way
okay,
the only way to have it classified is what's called a stick build. Something that's like built from, it has a foundation and all that, is to purge the title off of the abnormals. That's the only way to get it classified as a stick build.
okay,
Yep. And
because
that's
what I
because
was
it's a privately owned little community of its own.
Yeah, and well,
correct
and you have
because
the purging gets it off of the DMV registry. That's what that
Right.
is.
right.
Yeah. It's not in
Because
transportation.
For
right,
a
because what I
home,
was able to view for myself is I was being curious, and I was very observant of them putting up these homes. They start with the foundation first, and they bring everything on a flatbed. Then they distribute it to where they want to put these homes, and they just slap it together. So,
Yep.
that's why I
Like
was
Legos,
inquiring.
right?
Yeah, it's a big investment scheme if you don't realize it. A lot of people think it's quaint and quiet and you got private streets and stuff, but it's even harder to get out from under that kind of stuff when it comes to leases and evictions and stuff, because they're helping enforce both the private and public side of their records, which says that the one person in that lot that owns everything, it's his law. And it's his law because he's provided a contract with the city as an investment for that motor home park. It's an
And it's
investment.
operating under ecclesiastical law. One thing I found where where I found my birth certificate on the county level recorded as a mobile home, right? It went to a parcel number that didn't have any value to it. It had never been assessed, right? There wasn't anything on the public side really. On
Yeah.
the private side,
Yeah.
when you went to go look at the records, there was a whole bunch, but the only lien or the only claim or whatever that was on it, mill levy, right, went back to uh, basically the main streets where the Archbishop's seat is here in Colorado for the Cathedral of St. Mary's,
Right. And
and
that's the mill levy.
it's a water district.
Yeah. And that mill levy you talked about is the tax. That's what a levy is. It's a tax.
Yep.
And so
And
when
it's supposed to be to the millionths of a
right,
decimal, right?
mill. Yep. 1 mil. And that's the
Yep.
millage rate. And that's the
Yep.
rations that you were talking about earlier. We have to understand the language is specific if you look at what they're doing. And again, like I said, that mobile park homeowner or mobile park owner is using that as an investment contract with the city, and the only thing that has any value there isn't the contract itself, but the properties, the mobile homes. Okay, so he doesn't have to pay taxes on those either. But guess what?
Because it's
Everybody,
normally recorded as fee simple or allodial title depending on the state, and those ones are
right?
tax exempt.
But what's happening is that everybody's paying that rent, and of course that's going to the lot owner and everything. But then they also pay those utilities. Are they getting those utilities privately? No, they're getting those utilities
Yeah.
from the public community. So what's happened is the community has been able to squash a bunch of people into a smaller area that live in these small motor homes and still get their taxes despite the private contract of the investment owner.
And on top of that, you have the utilities that easement, right? That's one of the major claims that they have to, provide services like 911 and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why the cops can come on and they have curtilage, all that. But also, you have the the lovely aspect of those utilities. Like I said earlier, those are already allocated, and they're prepaid ahead of time. They've already been paid for
Yeah.
those utilities.
Absolutely. I did a video a while back on prepaid expenses, and taxes and insurance are prepaid. Well, then I did a review on it, and everything that we've been researching here correlates that everything's prepaid, folks. But we've been duped into a debt system to defer a debt that doesn't exist. It's
Oh,
all
and we
fiction.
actually found out how to claim back the credit.
Correct. It's modern drawback. Have you heard of that?
I have.
That's what
That's
we're looking at.
Yep, and it's actually there's a very specific if, I'd like to talk to you privately actually if we could. There are tax forms that you can actually do to basically claim back the credits from the bonds that they've issued in order to fund or monetize that account. Like I
Yeah.
said, they're reselling the note every 2.5 years, right? They're using the EFTPS system, which is electronic federal tax payment system, to make a tax payment, right, from your account, in your person's account, your estate or your endowment, and they're issuing the base price I found for mortgages and stuff like that is about 180,000, and for that 180,000, they're able to issue a $10 million bond.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know,
See
right?
that?
I'm like, talk about that's a return, right?
Yeah.
So, Keith, the other question that I have is that you were talking about the communities where they're putting up these manufactured homes called mobile homes. So then, when you have the what is called the association, is the association, would that be the LLP or the LLC that is running that whole one particular section of that community with all those homes within
Yeah.
that
Whatever.
group?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever they're running under. Generally, it's like a homeowners association, and that's a private member association. They have a
It
private
operates
contract.
under a covenant.
Right, and that private contract is their law. This is why it seems to be so hard to beat these homeowners associations when they come around and say, well, you can't put that planter pot, you can't construct a planter pot on your second story window. That's against the homeowners association policy. That's because they're enforcing a private contract with the municipality for those bonds that they get taxes from. And those bonds come from all the people, the dummies living in those motor homes that don't know better. They're still getting those bonds.
And it's since it's being issued under the parish on the basically the private side of that county or municipality, and that homeowners association is operating through a contract, which is a covenant. That's actually what they refer to it as.
Yep.
They're operating completely ecclesiastical, and now it's a pledge. There's
Yep.
something my family used to say, where it was a kind of like a running joke, where you would say something there, but they would ask, "Is that your creed or your covenant?"
Yep.
And if you said covenant, it was like, "Ooh," like wrong choice, like bad answer.
Yeah.
If
Whereas
you creed,
creed is your religious church, your
yep, and
parish,
the
your
family is
parish.
actually, yep, your family is actually recognized by the government and the church as the first church, as your first church before that
Yep.
meeting.
Yep. Church being gathering. Mom and dad
Mm-hmm.
create gathering by creating a third member.
So you've got more than a dozen different types of categories of fees that can show up. And now the thing is, they show up with all sorts of crazy and different names. But before we get into that, can you please just make it clear to folks, if it's taxable, that means it's negotiable, correct?
That is correct. And all of these fees that we're going to see listed, they are indeed taxable. So they are indeed negotiable. And let me preface this by saying that a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing is still a wolf. Fees can have many names.
One of the main reasons, again, HJR 192, they cannot demand dollar for dollar. So the tax issue is the definition of dollar. When they demand that you pay so much for to the IRS for taxes, ask them what they'd like you to pay you with. Oh, dollars. Well, what's the dollar? They're not
Well, if
going to
they're
answer
claiming
you.
you have the tax debt, you can literally send in your CP or your LTRC, and it'll settle it.
Yeah, and that's a little above the language we're dealing with here with this group, but yeah, we'll talk about that in private. That's for sure.
It's still fees, okay? And you can have 6 different names or 8 different names for like paint protection, but it's still just paint protection, regardless of the name that they associate with it.
Must be very clear the way to negotiate these products is to always ask for an itemization. The only way you're going to see these names and these numbers is for an itemization on the out the door price. So when you're negotiating, and watch some of our other videos about how to negotiate a used or new car, but you need an itemized out the door price, and then you're going to see things like wheel locks for $399. That's an example of an accessory. Pinstripes for $150. Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, here's 2 perfect examples of the same item with different names: splash guards, mud guards. There's no difference between the two, but they're just different names for the same item.
Yes, exactly. All right, Dad, let's get into a few of these here. You might see things like Seal-A-Jet or Zurich Shield or Advanced Ceramic Tech or Zybert Diamond Gloss, all examples of ceramic exterior or polymer exterior paint protection products. These things get marked up out the wazoo. They are BS fees in 2023 that dealers are adding onto cars, and you're likely going to get hit with when you try to negotiate. Well, we put it on all of our cars here at the dealership, so we can't take it off. What do you say to that, Pops?
Here's what you can do. You can just charge me what the internal cost for that is, and I don't need the guarantee that comes with it, because what you're really paying for with these things is the guarantee, the warranty that's part of it. If it's never
And this is why I said, that example of test drive vehicle where you go out and it's got 60 miles on it, but now you have this incentive on the paint that is void because it's already been used, and there may, other things, the undercarriage, the undercoat, and all that. These are different elements of those incentives that we need to start looking at to see what they're doing. And like this guy said, they're exorbitant charges. Just give me the internal cost, and I don't need the warranty.
Well, and they're able to actually depreciate the value of that vehicle, the first year alone, by $17,000. Within about 3 to 4 years, they can actually deduct or depreciate the entire value via taxes completely.
Oh yeah, and when we take a car off the lot, even if it's a brand new and only got 3 miles on it or whatever, automatically by industry standards, they cut it in half.
Yep.
Oh, Jet. Guess what? They don't have to pay.
Say what?
It's through the depreciation. It's also one way that they do, then they'll appreciate it again in order to resell it.
Yeah, they do it as a trade-in scheme too. Oh, we'll give you this much as a trade-in, and then when they turn around and sell it, they sell it for twice what they traded it in for.
So, Keith, the other question that I have is that would one private man or woman request what is called a declare and decree statement, or is that provided by the seller or the dealership?
No, I wouldn't ask for anything like that. I'm going to ask questions for every element myself. Again, it goes to the transparency, and we have to start learning this stuff. And when we start asking them for those kind of things, it's just another venue for them to not disclose things because you don't know already. Again, it's the important part here is to learn this stuff so we can go forward with proper questions already knowing the answer, so that if they answer us in the wrong way, we know that they either don't know or they're blatantly trying to lie to us.
And you want to be very what I call ambiguously specific, very broad in the not so much the topic, but what you're requesting, but specific in the topic that you're requesting for. I can't omit anything.
Yeah, I certainly have to agree, Mr. Salesman, that once it's driven off the lot, the industry standard says that it's already lost half its value. And you're trying to sell me a automobile that's got 60 miles on it, saying it's already been off the lot. Let's do a little negotiating here, huh? Kind of give them that ambiguous incentive.
Right, and it's always it's a lot of to push back when you agree with them versus when you start fighting with them. Right. Exactly.
Yep.
So all you have to do is ask to just pay for the internal cost of it, and it might be marked up at $150. And trust me, the internal cost, if it's $75 or $100, is really all it is. But that's how you can get around it.
Before using Jobber, we were grossing about $500,000 a year, and now we're grossing.
All right, Dad, you can sell your car on CarEdge. What's the deal? The deal is you just plug in your VIN number, and we'll get you offers from local dealers in minutes. Seconds. CarEdge.com/sell. Going to come across that are those BS. Couple fees you're likely going to come across that are those BS, of the BS variety, that's what I meant to say. Vehicle prep fee, dealer prep fee, pre-delivery service fee, pre-delivery inspection fee, reconditioning fee.
Absolutely. Again, those are all fees that you can get rid of by what? Direct manufacturer custom order.
If you're buying a used car and you see any of those, red flag. I hate to say it, red flag. That's a dealership. You can negotiate. You can say, hey, I'm looking to get the out the door price of this vehicle, which should just be a selling price plus taxes, and maybe you charge everyone a dock fee. Okay, I'll pay the dock fee. You shouldn't be paying a reconditioning fee, dealer prep fee, a service delivery fee. Those are all BS fees for a used car, and those can add up, man. Those can add up quick.
Same with the taxes, tags, registration. Those are all BS fees. They can't require them of you. They are not a tax withholder. They are not the state that is telling you that you're required to register. They are a dealership telling you that you're required to register and title it. That's not a condition of the sale.
And what they're doing with that insurance, when they require you to have insurance to drive that car off the lot or to go get that title or that tag, that license plate, what I found out is that they're actually the county or that dealership, they're taking that insurance and they're stripping it of the indemnity insurance, the property damage insurance, and the personal damage insurance, and they're handing you back basically an empty note, and then they sell that even as a strips bond through Treasury.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about with the indemnification bond this past week, is that when you create your own indemnification bond and put it in private placement, you're not selling the warrant. That's what that insurance is. You're signing those insurance things, and that's an endorsement. That's an amendment to an insurance policy. And the amendment is that you're selling the warrant. You sold the rights, titles, and interest to the property, and that property extends to even your own name in the contract. That's truly what you're buying, is the contract.
Yeah, the warrant is a check, and that's the asset. You have to have that, tangible asset, which is considered the warrant, and an intangible asset in order to have real property. That insurance contract is the intangible asset that backs up that tangible asset to make it real property. That's why they always keep it split.
Yep. Legal title is 1/10 of the law. Equitable title is 9/10 of the law. And when you're born, they split that equitable title by creating a legal title.
That's what a deed does. It liens, right? The deed attaches a lien. And that equitable title, which some people refer to as a naked title, right? I have a quick question. Does it normally end up very well when you go running around in public naked?
No.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got, Rebel?
Yeah, I found though that when you buy a vehicle, I guess even used, it don't matter, new or used, that after you bought it, you left that dealership with it, they don't put it in your name. And when you title it and you register it, only the title and the registration is in your name, not the vehicle. Because when I went one day and decided to take my plates off, and there happened to be a sheriff not very far, pulled me over, and I wouldn't answer any questions. He's like, move the paper so I could see the VIN number, and I covered that up on purpose too. I said no, and then he got me out and by force in a way, but he wasn't strong enough, and he was by himself to pull me out the vehicle. He only had me by my wrist on one hand, and he was really trying to twist my wrist. But I was twisting back and forth the other direction as his hands was sliding or, ring around the wrist. And I got out. But he ran it, the VIN number, and it came back as owned by All American Chevrolet, not by me.
Interesting. And that's one of the reasons that we talk about this sales contract. And what's actually happening is what you're selling is the contract itself. And that contract has the data elements. That includes your name, the signature, all the details of the contract. And when you do so without qualifying that signature in the proper capacity, expressing the trust, and you're the benefactor, it kind of screws things up. And what happens is you just sold everything. All rights, titles, and interest to the property. And that property, as Hadassah was saying, is that there's an intellectual property or an intangible property and a physical property. And you just sold it to the state and now take on a tax ownership and a liability of licensure. In that liability of licensure and tax ownership, you're supposed to take on a intent of performing the functions of public office. You're not qualified to do so. You don't have an oath, and you weren't elected to office or appointed by others as electors.
And that's what an OID is they're selling that note and that, all that, those assets, tangible and intangible, at an extreme discount.
Yep, original issue. Right, OID, original issue discount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're getting pittance for how much they're making on those bonds, right?
Yep.
There was, I remember 8 or 9 years ago, where one of my salespeople at the mini store had been looking at a pre-owned car at a local dealership, and the price of the car was listed, and they added a $1,595 reconditioning fee. And it's like, what nonsense is that? That should just be built into the price of the car. That's not a separate line item that the customer pays for. That's a dealer expense, and should just be factored in. And it was a way to advertise a lower price to get you in.
And it's a reconditioning fee. That reconditioning fee, as a detailer at a car lot myself, is for detailing the cars on a regular basis, because they get weathered from dry days blowing dust around, and then rainy days that pound that dust into the paint protection and clear coat and all that. So that's what they're talking about there, and that's just ridiculous.
Would that be then raise the price? De-shelving a business, or taking something out of warehouse cold storage?
Say that again.
I said, would that, do you think, be similar to de-shelving a business, or taking something out of warehouse cold storage?
No, this is actually an addition. Like I said, there's a paint protection thing on there already, right? Now they're going to add a reconditioning thing on there, which kind of voids the incentive on the paint protection, right?
Well, I'm saying how they might be utilizing it or applying it in other aspects, as far as like the prison system, or as far as
like a restock.
Yeah, or like when you de-shelve a business that's been shelved, right, or closed, you reconditioning it would be starting it back up again, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like a reestablishment, reorganization after it's been merged.
Exactly. Yeah, voluntary correction program for all those correction facilities where they're correcting us and conditioning us to comply.
Yeah.
Amount of the reconditioning fee. That is pure nonsense, pure BS. It is just a bait and switch way to get somebody in the door based on a lower advertised price that, well, doesn't really exist.
All right, VinEtch. This one is very common, and go search on Amazon. It's like $10. All right, so you're going to see VinEtch, VTR, theft code protection, courtesy guard, express code, and phantom footprint. They're all different flavors of vanilla, folks. Those are all the same exact thing. They all cost the same amount of money, and they are frequently listed as BS fees on car deals.
Yes.
I love all the different names. GPS theft deterrence pops, another category, another flavor of fee. We've got ELO GPS, Spartan GPS, SWAT GPS, LoJack, theft patrol. Again, all different shades of gray here. They all mean the same exact thing. They're all going to show up on these itemized outdoor prices for $9.99, $14.
And you can get an AirPod and just put it somewhere on the car that they wouldn't normally look to find or anything, and easily track those things. You don't need the GPS tracker. The GPS is convenient, but again, you can use your phone for the same purposes. You don't need it in the car.
Yeah, and that GPS tracker is directly linked to that kill switch.
Right.
$99, you negotiate the heck out of them, or just walk out of that dealership and find a different dealership that's not forcing a SWAT GPS on you.
Yes, especially when the SWAT GPS probably costs them about $200.
Now we talk exterior protection packages. That there is a laundry list of interior protection packages, things like fabric defense, interior all-weather protection, Nuvenair, Caltex Reinstall, LuxCare, Autobond Sealant, Xyleon. I really can't believe that's one of the ones. Permaplate, paint and fabric defense, and Allstate paint and fabric. These are common fees that dealers just add on to cars. You didn't ask for them; they're already installed. And just like exterior paint protection products, the same thing on the interior. Nitrofill, that Nitrofill is a fan favorite amongst dealers. $3.99 to put some air in the tire. Am I mistaken?
Well, it's nitrogen. It's nitrogen. They suck out the air and they replace it with nitrogen. Now, don't forget that air is 78% nitrogen. So why can they just suck out the 22% that isn't? That's the question.
Dad, you also have window tint products that are frequently added used to run.
You see the logic in that?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the carbon sequestration credit?
Yeah, I imagine that has to do with the carbon footprint that we're putting on the world climate change, and of course one of the things. Social support, right? Yeah, one of the climate change specifically, because they're so worried about this climate change and they're trying to cut down the carbon footprint. However, they fail to realize that some of us are a little bit more intellectual than that, and we see that the carbon footprint needs to be raised so that the plants can feed better and put off better and cleaner and more oxygen in return.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for that carbon sequestration credit is because if they can sequester it, we literally exhale carbon. So if they can sequester that, they can literally charge us for the air we breathe. And then
Yep.
all those other chemicals that he listed, right? All the other additives and add-ons, blah, blah, that actually is linked directly to the tax form that it operates the Bloomberg terminal, basically.
Yep. Interesting.
Run dealerships in Arizona, you put desert
Yes.
packages on cars that included window tint, solar guard tint, tinted glass, nano ceramic film. There's all sorts of window tint products that can get added again. Negotiable on windshield protection packages, as well as things like smart auto windshield repair, crystal future.
Yeah, and I want mirrored windows. You know, I can see out, but you can't see in. See, that's that onus
that-
probandi.
Is that having to do with the whole UV protection in the EPA? Right. I'm trying to remember what it was. There was this whole program for UV protection. It's also in the FDA, you know, like sunscreen, eyewear,
Yeah.
UV protection.
Yeah, and this is a matter of reflecting harmful rays. It's actually a health measure as well as your onus probandi.
Yeah, it's always a health measure, right? It's for our
Yep.
safety.
The UV thing is a scam.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We really love a good old
Yes,
crystal fusion.
yes.
Those are all examples of windshield protection coverages that are just added to cars. And the only way you're going to know about this again is if you ask for that itemized out the door price. And then when you see these things, remind yourself they are
Nonsense. They are
negotiable.
They are negotiable, and it's pure nonsense that the dealer has many, many different names for, so that they can add to the selling price of the vehicle at inflated profit margins. Every one of these is negotiable. Every one of these is way overpriced. So just be aware of them. And I'm guessing, Zach, that you'll make this list available in this video so that people can see it.
CarEdge.com/fees. You'll have the whole list of fees that are there, fees that you actually end up having to pay. For example, dock fees are a fee that, for whatever reason,
Title tags and registration. In addition to taxes, there are a handful of other legitimate fees that are imposed by our local government. False. Imposed. That's an imposition. That's an impossibility.
Yeah, when they put you in an imposition, right? It's like kind of like when you're playing musical chairs and they steal your seat. So you
Yeah.
don't get to make decisions at that table anymore.
Yeah. Imposed. Imposed
Yeah.
is a imposition and an impossibility. Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. Now, are you an imposter?
Hopefully not.
that
If
for
I
whatever
am, I
reason have
don't
just been internationally mandated here in the United States. But all the ones that are BS fees, they're all listed right there. You can search through them. If you have a fee that you've seen before that you didn't hear us cover here today or is not on that guide, leave it in the comments down below. I'm going to make a master list of 2023 BS dealer fees. Pops, thanks for doing this as always.
My pleasure.
And so we see people that are in the know, in the industry, discussing things that we should be learning as well. And at the same time, they evidently don't understand some of the things other people know. And this is the importance of going forth with your talents, sharing your talents, going out with 3 talents, coming back with 6. How is that? Because you go share your information, they share information with you. Now you both come back with better knowledge, greater knowledge. And that's what prosperity and abundance is truly about. And that's why I say the true benefit is knowledge. What do you got, guys?
That's always been our true commodity, or true, monetary system.
So when they talk about this, the silver and gold that Congress is making the monies supposedly or allegedly, is that considered by mentalism?
No, it's a psychological game, again, by the twist of the words and stuff. If we understand, again, that the deferment of a debt is actually the imposition of a fact that there's a debt even posed. Owe no man anything. And that is the part of the psychological game that has people believing in what's called money as opposed to credit. All glory goes to him. He created us all, and everything we created from that is still his credit. That nice car, that's to God's credit, because we have the intellectual, the intangible thought to be able to come up with that.
There's one other aspect of it though that most people don't know about. I stumbled across the same forms that create the the Bloomberg terminal, right? On those forms, they also include blood banks. Ecclesiastically, blood is oil, right? That's why they anoint with oil.
Yep.
And even recently, Trump's been making, in the last year, lots of references to, he considers oil black gold. Because when they changed everything over to oh shoot, my brain just went kaput. Nixon, when he changed it from the gold standard, help me out here, what's the word? Where it's fuel. It's based on fuel.
Petrodollar.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Yeah, the petrodollar, right? The whole surrendering of the gold wasn't exactly what we think of as that, shiny thing that is, we get out of the ground. It wasn't just that. It was literally us, our blood. It's
Well,
for the money, honey.
Well, just so Lee was the gold. Just sanguinis is the oil. So the gold is the dust of the ground, the body, the nutrients, and then that's the just so Lee, and then the just sanguinis is the blood, and that's the oils. And if you notice, if you put some blood on the ground, it will dry up rather quickly, as well as when it starts coagulating right away, it's much more like oil than water, because it really doesn't have so much water in your blood. The water in your body is in your cells, and though the blood has a little bit of water, the majority of it is an oil type, and that's why I say it's important to understand the intake of both your nutrients and your waters, as well as your oxygens and oils.
Yeah, because there's blood cells, and then there's the plasma.
Right, and
which is that carries those blood cells.
Right, and I donated plasma for many years, and that's the concept of these infusions that I'm going through right now with lung cancer. Is they're using the plasma by adding a type of, it's almost like a chemotherapy type activator that enhances the white blood cells to do a more efficient job in fighting cancers and other things in your body. So it's not an actual chemo.
Very particular kind of plasma for that. It's typically from an AB negative individual, because theirs is a universal donor, but they can't receive from anyone.
No, that's O.
No, O negative is for the blood cells. O negative can donate to everyone, but
I see
AB
what you're saying. AB negative for the plasma. Okay, I got you.
Yep. I know, because my father is that he has to actually have like blood on storage, because nobody else matches him. So they can donate to everybody, but they can't receive from anybody.
Huh. I'll have to do some more research on that, because that is one of my very intriguing research topics. I love that shit. So go ahead, brother.
Yeah, ivermectin and fenbendazole, they kill cancer. It's just a parasite, is all it is. And a lot of heart disease is probably caused mostly by parasites. And so people take, those things and colloidal silver, and they get rid of all of that. Usually,
I've got a very wide spectrum of things that I'm using: DMSO, colloidal silver, hydrogen peroxide infusions, apricot kernel tablets, or capsules, the frequency wave generator, baking soda, cell salts, magnesium, folic acid, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin K.
Castor oil pulling. Have you tried that?
No, actually, I've got pine terpenes.
Terpene compounds are very, very good for that.
Castor oil pulling, like if you get a hernia belt, you get something not plastic, But to put that castor oil on and spread it on there, and you just have it against your skin wherever you want it, for your liver or your pancreas or your intestines. You just place it in one of those areas, and it'll help take a lot of the poisons out of your liver and out of your pancreas and whatever else.
Yeah, and that's what the oils are for. Those oils, and same with DMSO. DMSO will go through your cell wall barriers. Your
Have
oils
you
will
been
do the
doing
same
any?
thing.
Yeah, I like that stuff, but it'll make you stink.
Say that again,
Boiled,
Hadas.
boiled distilled vinegar. You can put it in a humidifier with like a 1 part water and 1 part distilled vinegar, with about a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and just sit over that and inhale it, and have a trash can ready next to you, because it's like vomiting from your lungs. But
Oh,
that clears all that out. And that's actually one of the ways that we helped one of our friends get rid of. They gave him 4 months to live. We had him for a month and a half on all this stuff, and he had a clean bill of health, and he's still perfectly healthy now. 2.5
yeah.
years
No,
later.
I haven't tried exactly that, but like I said, I do take baking soda and apple cider vinegar. But
Good.
if
Try
it
it
got
with that. It's and have a trash can ready. Is but it's very effective.
yeah, that I think that sounds more for the expulsion of fluid from your lungs then.
Well, it's also
I-
fluid or any kind of infection, the extra mucus, all of that.
Go ahead, Rebel.
Oh.
I'll say though, I tried that DMSO, a little bit, but that stuff, just enough of it, and it'll make you stink
Oh,
for like
yeah.
24 hours.
Well, yeah, and that's I've got mine in a spray bottle diluted with water, and just spray it on after I get out of shower.
One of the things I wanted to mention to Brother Keith is like with the blood cells, when they centrifuge it and it's spin down in a centrifuge, it gets that yellow color, and that's what they would call the straw color of the blood. And it's called I can't think of the name of it right now, but that's where you get that gold looking yellow color of
Yeah,
centrifuged blood.
that's the plasma. All right, guys. Well, we're at the end. I certainly want to show everybody I appreciate your support, both down in the chat and on panel. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Always appreciated. What do you guys got on the way out?
I'll go first. I tell you, as I sit here and listen tonight, this was a very important, informative panel tonight for sure. I appreciate whoever this is beside me here. I don't want to botch the name.
Hadassah.
But, yeah, in Rebel Studio, and Amon, always a pleasure having you as well. But I love this panel tonight, and I think it was very informative for a lot of people that may come across this in the future.
I hope so too. Yeah, I think we covered quite a bit, and that's why I appreciate the panels. Hadassah, you came up on a great day. I appreciate all the input you gave, because it asserts that my research is coinciding with other people's, and when we come in agreement on these topics on a broader scope like we did tonight, I don't think we had any conflicts with anything, and we both understood the law the way we interpreted it pretty much the same way. I think that's a pretty good step forward there.
Right, and thank you for having me. It's yeah, performing rights societies too. Just as a last little thing, people need to really look into those.
Well, yeah,
Buddy, I'll jump out.
All right, thanks, Russ. Yeah, please keep coming back, and we'll look more into those other things that you're talking about, because again, this is one of the things about coming up on panel and helping me out is I don't have all the sources, and you're going to have sources that I don't know, so I'm always willing to drop them down. So keep coming back, and we'll start doing that.
Awesome. I love to share information. So perspective, right?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Rebel.
Yeah, I just want to say for everyone to watch these politicians, look at the flag that's right beside them or behind them or that they're promoting. It's not an American flag. It's the gold fringe flag of the military occupation. The military owns that flag, and they're hiding behind the American flag. But I can prove that America does not exist because whenever you look into the systems, when you're filling stuff out, it brings you a list of all the countries. You will not see America and you will not see Washington, D.C. listed as a country of where you live at because Americans are not to know. America ended in 1871, and they've just been saying the word America, making us think that it exists still. So we got to fight before they have us end it. If we
Yep.
separate the states up like they want to, we fight for states and the government, America is completely dead.
Yep, and I'll agree there because that goes to the same concept. You know, if you believe in that map called the United States, including all those states of the territory or the Union, whatever you want to call it, and find out that the United States is located in Washington, D.C., it brings in the inconsistent concepts of what is the United States. Is it this map that I've been taught in this grade school, or is it what is determined by definition in the actual code? And why did they teach me that in school then?
Well, that's where all the confusion comes in, Brother Keith, because a lot of these children today, they really truly believe that the United States is the land, and that when they go across from one point with these fictitious signs, of sign reading that says like Indiana or Washington or Missouri or whatever, they thinking these are the boundaries of the land, but they are not boundaries because the land cannot be divided. The Most High did not create it that way. But the one thing I do want to say, I really feel within myself, within my soul, that things are changing, and they're changing the system from the system that we know it as fiat into the credit system. And with the knowledge that we bring, we'll be able to maneuver smoothly moving forward. And I yield. And I love you all. And thank you again for a great panel again tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming up.
Well, Pledge of Allegiance is to the flag of the United States, not to America, not to the American flag.
Right, to the
And
United
that's what
States.
people need to learn.
Yeah, it says the United States and the republic for which it stands for. There's a republic, but what is it?
Well,
It's not
most
America.
of the county and the municipalities, we found their code of ethics and all the pledges and stuff that they're making in their national associations and everything is to United States of America.
Yeah,
Go
even
find
the
their associations.
even the APWU, like I discussed last night, the American Postal Workers Union, it's under the AFL-CIO, American Federation of Labor, Congress on International Organization.
Oh, and
So
then
all
you also have the National Association of Letter Carriers, right?
Yep, same thing.
There's
So,
there's treasures, there's all that good stuff. You guys need to go find the associations,
and by the
that's where how they operate.
and by the way, that video I did yesterday on the American Postal Workers Union's Constitution, where I correlated the scriptures, I copy pasted and put those together and put those in my community section on El Perro here. So you've actually got a thing you can read of the APW Constitution's preamble and the biblical correlations for what they use in their preamble. That's where they get their law. It's got a spiritual intent.
Right? Did you know that postal workers and everything, if they have any controversy or if they're, sued or anything like that, instead of a lawyer representation, they actually are assigned a steward?
No, I did not. I'll have to check that out too.
Because I found that very interesting.
The Postal Service is my thing. That's the top thing that I get
know.
on everybody about. So yeah, we need to talk some more.
Yes, I've been trying to catch you, and I always get you like right at the last few minutes. I'm like, dang it.
I'm live 3, 6, and 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and 9 p.m.
Okay.
Central Standard Time on Sundays.
I'm horrible with time.
And I might miss one here or there depending on what my daily schedule runs into. Like today, I didn't do a 3 o'clock one, but I try to make sure that I'm going to do a 3, 6, and 9. Last Friday, I missed 3, 6, and 9, so I did them on Saturday. So just a matter of private scheduling, and sometimes it doesn't work out to perfection, but I'm still going to put the shit out. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm not stopping. So keep looking for me.
Okay.
And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's say I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see you next time.
We don't stop.
Not at all.
Ever.